statewide.
It's official, you're on till you die.
It's just a summons.
Huh?
Is this a
Yeah.
summons?
Summons.
A summons?
What's that?
Is this a summons?
Yeah. Yeah, that's your sentence. Okay, so we're ready to go here. We will call the Board of Health meeting to order August 19th. Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I guess we will go right into the COVID plans. Do we have any plans, Sean?
So it's on? Or do I push a button?
No.
Okay. I did present to you this morning, so these plans aren't necessarily something that you have to decide on today, because you would have gotten an email this morning pretty early, and so I understand that, I understand that timing is a little tricky there. But we do have a plan from the Cook Mansion for a bridal dress event. They have 2 events coming up. One is this weekend. That one is actually most likely going to be around 50 people or under 50, so it wouldn't necessarily meet our 50 person criteria. But then there's a larger one that's the September 18th and 19th. And basically what it is an event where I think that they have bridal dresses for people to come try on, and I don't think they're used. They maybe just are what they have at the end of the season or something, and they're trying to offload them at a discount. So they have these events. I guess this happens every year there, but this is what they're doing. So they do have, they'll have people trying on dresses, and I recommended that she put some language in here that in between the trying on of dresses and that they wipe the hangers down and anything. I don't think they can wipe the dresses down, obviously. And I don't think you can disinfect them, but that would be something. Anything that they can wipe down, they should just wipe down with disinfectant. So that is the bridal events that are coming up. And then on the 29th, there's the art and craft fair. And so those are 2 plans that we need to kind of look at in the near future. We can discuss them now if you so desire, but I want to make sure you have time to go over them. We also have the tractor pull event. All of you have seen that. I forwarded all the comments on to Nancy Davis. I think she's actually spoken with many of you. She's actually been very good to work with. Not that I have any reason to think that she wouldn't have been, but they've been good to work with. And the only thing that I'm kind of waiting for is to see if the tractor pull organizers have somewhat of their own protocol, or she's going to have to maybe come up with a protocol for them. But it would be much better if it came from them. And so I did reach back out to her today and ask her what the plan was for that. So we also have had a request. The Boy Scouts would like to do some sort of camping event at Goose Bay, Duck Creek on September 11th through the 13th. We'd have over 100 campers there. I have not reached out to them yet. I will. Gotten back a hold of them, but that one seems a little concerning to me. It's a little more than what we're normally looking at, where the public is kind of come in, go out. This is definitely a full contact event, if you want to call it that. So
What was the date again on that, Sean?
that is September 11th through the 13th. And I will get more information, and I will send them a draft, some draft plans like what we've been using, and say, provide us with that and a summary of what the event is going to be, like what does it entail, because that's the big part, is we need to understand what they're doing. Some of the events that we've reviewed in the past have been events that we know very well in our community, so it's easy to review those. But something like this, we'll need to know where people are coming from, how that's all being handled, how will they keep social distancing? I think this one's gonna be a little tricky. I've also been Ducks Unlimited has I think their annual banquet is in November, and they have also reached out to me, so I gave them some plans for their annual banquet. So we may see something coming up from them, but I think in terms of that type of COVID plans, we have the two active ones from the Cook Mansion, and then we have the tractor pull. Those are the only ones that we've had that are kind of active right now. Any questions for me on that?
Well, on most of these plans, there's no reference to if we're back into the over the 4 cases that require masks. Because it's not said, it says some of them say masks are required but on a certain circumstance. But if we go over 4, they're required to wear a mask at all time, are they not?
Right. They would be required to. I think because of I'm thinking of the crafts event, there are some outdoor activities there. If they can keep their social distance and it's outdoors, I don't think there is a requirement. But I think that in everyone's best interest, I would push for it, especially for the craft people to have that, be wearing masks if they're present there. I think that's a good idea for them to. So we do have a representative now from the Cook Mansion. So I briefly just discussed the dates, and
Okay.
You heard me talking about the arts and crafts, but I talked about the bridal events and kind of how I thought they would play out. But
So basically, they're kind of a yard sale kind of thing. The dresses come from a nonprofit out of Missoula, and it's kind of the last ditch effort to find them homes. So they're very low priced. We did the event right before COVID hit, and we probably had 50 brides out for that event. Basically, they come in, they pick out a dress, they try it on. If they like it, they take it with them, or they try on another dress. So it's just in and out real quick.
So one question I have, since we haven't talked yet about it, but is you have 2 facilities you'll use as fitting rooms.
I have 3 closet areas we set up to use as fitting rooms.
Okay, and what facility are they in then?
They're in the chapel.
Okay, in the chapel. So I think it would be just prudent that in between each person, you wipe down the door handles and that kind of thing. So we can add that probably to the plan.
Yeah, we can spray Lysol, wipe them down.
Yeah.
Good.
The dresses will be in the chapel.
The dresses are in the chapel, yeah. We could put them outside if weather's permitting.
So we may have to limit the amount of people in the
Okay.
room so that you don't have, so they can maintain that spacing.
That spacing. Okay.
I assume
We can
because it's
definitely
kind
do
of
that.
throughout the day, you don't get 40 people all at once.
No.
It'll be a spread out thing.
Usually first thing in the morning, it's a little crazy and we just have a waiting line. But,
Yeah.
we let a certain number of groups in just so it's not so overwhelming.
So you've done that in the past anyway.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just have to limit that number, and you might consider having masks just because they're probably coming from out of county.
Yeah, most of them are from Lewis and Clark.
So I would think that's a good idea if
Okay.
you're up for that. Those are my comments.
So we were at 50 for a wedding in there. Would we stay at that 50 or would we go down smaller? Like 25 in the chapel at one time? It's pretty full anyway.
I think if you require masks, you can have more people, but you really, what would you normally have in there with the dresses? How many people would you have allowed, do you think? before?
Probably the most we've ever had in there at one time is 30.
30. For some reason, I had much fewer in mind in order to keep kind of space going there, but,
We can limit it to whatever we need to.
okay. Maybe that's something you and I can work
Yeah.
out. And then we can get that plan to the board with a little more refining, so
Okay.
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. What about the school plan?
So I have I have kind of a separate, we'll do that. If you guys, are you guys good right now with questions for the arts and craft fair or the bridal? Do you have any comments at this point? Okay. So I think the only thing we need to do is figure out how many can be in the chapel for that.
Okay.
And then for the crafts fair, talk about potentially having masks, but both events we need to say if we're under a mask order for facial covering order, obviously everyone needs to have facial coverings at that time. So if we haven't, I thought we had done that in this, but it might have been in the tractor pull one where we added that.
Okay.
We'll want to put that on there. So,
Great.
well, thank you for coming, and then you and I will talk about those little details that we just discussed. So.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Stacy.
So I forwarded to you, going to the school plans, I forwarded to you something that one of my counterparts in Sanders County, when he was talking to Ed Evanson, who's the supervisor of food and consumer safety. He's kind of our in-between person between us and the governor's, the JIC, because he sits in on those meetings and can ask questions. So that's who we go to when we have questions. I don't know, I emailed this to you. I'm not sure if you were able to print it out. It has the Sanders County letterhead on it. And basically what it comes down to is their recommendation or their thoughts on where we should as a Board of Health, or you should as a Board of Health, and us as the environmental health and public health folks, where we should step in is where we have expertise. And so if you go kind of to the page 2, it doesn't really say it specifically to this, but it talks about where are there are several sources of information for food safety, environmental cleaning, indoor air quality, and that type of thing. So basically what DPHHS is saying is I should be looking at the food service and making sure that it meets any kind of current COVID-19 plans. And one prime example of that is we've gone from sanitizing tables and that type of thing to disinfecting. So it's just a little higher strength disinfectant or chlorine content or whatever the disinfectant is. So that is something that we've changed during COVID-19. So we'll need to make sure that the school is prepared to do that. And then just same thing with cleaning and disinfecting. That's something that we can help them try to figure out. And then from the standpoint of how the public health department can help is in the arena of what happens if there is a case, how to follow up on it, the contact tracing, but helping them come up with their plan on what happens if there is a case. So really the DPHHS has kind of pulled back and said that the board and our departments should stay in our lanes, and our lanes are defined as the food service, the disinfection portion, and then how to handle if there is a active or a case at the school, what they should be doing, helping them come up with their protocols, and then helping them follow through with those protocols. Basically, that is their recommendation on the school portion of it. Now, whether that's, I think that there are varying degrees of what the Board of Health can do, and we've seen those discussions go through emails from our own group here of what the Board of Health feels like that we should do. This was from what the supervisor of food and consumer safety felt.
So Sean, what about the portion on here where, of course, it's just, says a recommendation about the school inspections by the sanitarian?
Yeah, so that's something that I was not even aware of. I mean, I guess I just hadn't heard through the grapevine that in January of this year there were new ARMs passed. So I'll have to get up to speed on that. That is specific to elements that were prior to COVID, though.
Okay.
You know, if it was I'm just guessing if it was in January. I mean, it was a whole different world 7 months ago. So.
Sean, I had a question that dovetails that. Is there any recommendation of how often those inspections are? Is it weekly? Do they-
I'm guessing that the ARM says once a year, if
Once a year?
maybe twice a year. You know, our food service, they would probably try to, using your term, dovetail, you know, our inspection so that we try to go to the food service twice there, and we would probably try to do the school inspection at the same time. So twice at most is my guess. But I will have to look into what those ARMs are requiring.
I thought it would probably be a little more often with the COVID, at first, with this school starting.
And
Yeah,
it's
twice a
something that we
year.
can work out. It just depends on what they're asking us to look at, and then, you know, what their protocols. And this was kind of what, in my comments early on about the school plan, was the plan is a good outline, but we don't know any of the details on how they're going to do. As simple as what are they going to do when they say they're going to disinfect. I don't know what that means. To me, you know, I need to know down to what is the disinfectant, because we need to know how much contact time are they, if they're disinfecting in between class times and they're just wiping down tables and it's a 15-minute contact disinfectant, that's not going to work for us. So, you know, as I've said, the plan was a good outline, but it lacked specificity from my standpoint to be able to even determine how it could work. So,
I just thought that twice a year might be a little bit long, if there's something, an issue that you see right off the bat, that would be, you know, none of us, including them, are the expert of what needs to be done, so any thoughts or suggestions, or, you know, have another set of eyes on something that they see from outside might help them correct
So-
something that, instead of waiting six months.
the way that we would do that, and it would probably be similar in a food service establishment, is if it's if it's an issue that we need to follow up on, that's a whole different, that's a follow-up, and that's not the standard twice a year call. So if I go into the school and we find an issue that they're not cleaning the bathrooms or something, and I would do a follow-up inspection, and then at that point it would be just specific to those items. Or, I mean, I could do a whole re-inspection, but typically you're going back just to do look at those items that were pretty egregious to make sure that they're taking care of them. And usually we would set a date of this has to be fixed by a specific time, or you have to, for a restaurant it would be close if it was a bad enough issue. Like a refrigerator that was not holding temperature, you know, you throw the food out and then tell them that they can't put any more food in there until they get it fixed, kind of thing. So.
So what's the, what's your involvement if they have a case at the school?
So my involvement is very little. I think it then becomes Teresa's, unfortunately, her issue. And obviously, we work together. So if she needs my help, that's all I can do. But it goes then to the public health portion if there's a problem. And Teresa and her staff will do their best, but it could easily be overrun if a whole classroom gets sick. And then, you know, Teresa and I, in talking about just the standard operating procedure for that we'll talk about later, talked about, you know, making sure that in the future Helen gets some training on contact tracing as well, because if we do get multiple cases all at the same time, it will overrun her department. I mean, right now it's her and one other person, so we need to make sure we have some cross training if we can, including myself if, you know, we need to. But that's definitely, so it will be Teresa's office that will handle any kind of contact, just like it would be if it happened in the courthouse or anywhere else in the county. So.
Yeah, we're having training on that actually at 3 o'clock today with the state. So, because there's just going to be so many, you know, it could happen in so many different ways, you know. So basically, you know, if a child goes to school for 2 or 3 days, is asymptomatic, and then all of a sudden is sick or something, we have a ton of exposure. And I hope this doesn't happen, but I feel like it's gonna happen somewhere in Montana, hopefully not here, but you know, they're opening up schools only to shut them down in 2 weeks because they have 60 cases of COVID. So, like I said, it could happen in so many different ways, and so we kind of just have to, you know, learn what we can learn about, you know, each different scenario and go from there. Our school does not have a school nurse, which also puts a lot of heat on my department, you know, where a lot of schools have a school nurse and they're probably going to be the first person to identify that, and we don't have that here. So anyway, hopefully the training will help out and we'll be able to come up with some guidelines for what's going to happen if we have a case at the school.
Okay. So do we have anything else on COVID then, or is that all the plans we have?
I think that's all I have for, well, we could go over this operating procedure if you want. This was the standard operating procedure for how we go from 3 cases to 4 cases or 4 cases, you know, above the threshold and then perhaps back down. It seems silly, but it became apparent when Teresa and I were talking that we don't really have anything set up, like who does the communicating and how do we communicate that the cases are active or non-active. And a perfect example was when I was talking to Teresa, she knew that there was a new case in our county, and we thought it was going to push us into 4, but it actually was an old case that had been attributed to Gallatin County, and they just figured out that it was actually in our county. So it didn't put us over that 4, but if it had, what do we do? How do we get that information back out to the community so that they know that it's time that they have to mask up? And it's important that we do that. And then how do we communicate that they can take their masks off when that happens? So
Yeah, most counties have a PIO for their health department or the county. We only have a PIO for our DES department, and so you know, pretty much is just put on Sean and myself. Once we go over 4 cases, then between him and I, we have to get that information out, because normally the PIO would put out some kind of a, you know, mass message to the community that we're over 4 and you need to wear a mask. So I just got a call from one of the bigwigs at the state wanting to know how we are doing that, and I said that we're working on our plan because we don't have a PIO. So anyway, we just have to do the best we can and get the information out to as many people as we can. And only having a newspaper on once a week, doesn't help us a lot either, so.
So there was one typo on there in the, kind of at the bottom, it says county. It was supposed to be county attorney. I fixed it on the top one, but somehow not on the bottom one. It also, when I was thinking about when we email out to the Board of Health, my email automatically includes the county health officer, but we need to add that on there because it's not specific on, and I think that obviously the health officer needs to be part of that list. And then we probably should also include, we must have a social media presence somehow. Do we have a Facebook?
I guess we use that BCDC listserv. And once our new website is up and going, there's alerts on there.
Okay.
And
How long are we?
we're
I mean, months?
shooting for the end of September.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's down the road.
Yeah. Additionally with that is people have the ability to sign up for those alerts, so once they come out, it'll go direct to their text message to their phone or email. So that'll be helpful when we get that up.
Absolutely. Just somewhere where the public knows to go. It's important because the governor's website updates at 10. Somewhere around 10 is what it says, or by 10. Sometimes it's 9:45 or whatever. But we want to be as proactive as we can. If we know that there's a fourth case, we want to be able to tell people the evening before so that when they drive into work that next morning, they've got their masks and they're ready to, they're prepared for it. So the sooner we can communicate to amongst ourselves and then get that information out, the better we are. So counting on that, trying to follow that governor's website is not necessarily, it's a good way, but if we can be more proactive, I'd like to be able to do that. And I think it's important that we know as a group what's going on. There hasn't been kind of a communication specific to this, and so I think it's important that we make sure we're communicating amongst ourselves. So,
Is the public radio still up and going, or called the high school?
Well, good question. I know they did have something, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't know if it's.
I know it is during school time,
Yeah.
During the school year. I'm just not sure if it is during summer or not.
It runs all the time, but I don't know if they have any input on it in this. I think it's only during the school year that they actually have input on it, but that would be something that we could get going now that they're starting school. We could
I
make
have
sure
that
that gets out
Yeah.
on the radio when we're on now.
Yeah, we have to have that information for our pan flu policies and some of those other policies. And we have actually done some advertising, because we're nonprofit, kind of like, or the bike rodeo and stuff like that, have been able to advertise on that radio station. So I think it's just during the school year though.
So I will update this and send it out with some of the information that we've captured here now. And if you think of anyone else that should be on the list, I do like that getting it out to the LEPC, because it is a lot of the members of our community that are already active in the community. So having the new DES coordinator email forwarded out to those folks will be also a good part to getting it spread out there. So.
I guess I have a question. It kind of goes back to the school issue. What do we envision the role of the Board of Health if there is a exposure? And
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I guess what do we think as the Board of Health? What our role is going to be if the school and there is an exposure and they have to do something? What role are we going to play?
I think probably one of the main roles that the Board of Health is gonna, have to make decisions on whether we're gonna keep the school open or not. you know, and it all just depends how that rolls out. Like I said, you know, if we have, you know, one exposure and it was limited and stuff like that, but, you know, if we have a huge exposure and we have 20 kids involved or 20 teachers or whatever the case might be, you know, we might be looking at shutting the school down, and that would probably come from the Board of Health, so. I'm not exactly sure what other decisions we would make, for sure. You know, other than just the normal public health stuff that we have to go through with quarantine and isolation, so.
Well, that decision is probably going to include the public health officer,
Mhm,
correct?
absolutely.
Okay. Got a
Mr.
question?
Chairman?
Yeah,
Okay.
Deb.
Kind of following up on that was gonna be my question. So school starts, I think, next Wednesday or something. So is there a percentage, is there any guidelines? If we have 2% of the kids get infected, we shut it down? And my next part of that question, is that up to the Board of Health to shut down the school? Third part of that question goes back to cleaning, disinfecting the tables, the desk and everything. Is that procedure and process something that the school decides alone or with your input? I'm kind of confused on that. Did their plan need your approval, basically? So 3 parts. Sorry.
Well, I think it's,
I'm not sure where the sanitation and all that stuff went because they've been gone. As far as percentage wise, that there wouldn't be any kind of percentage. If we would have to take it on a case by case basis. We might close the school down if there's one kid, if the exposure is you know, what we think might be detrimental to the community. You know, we just are gonna have to take that on a case-by-case basis, as far as that goes. And I do believe that the Board of Health has the most power in the community. First of all, I would be the first one to find out about it, and I would talk with Doc about, you know, what kind of path we would need to go down. And like I said, we have more training on that today, but, does that answer those 2 questions? The percentage really, it wouldn't be a percentage of any of the students. It would just, it would just depend on how the exposure happened, basically.
So the Board of Health does have authorization to close down the school?
Oh, yeah. We can pretty much close down anything, so.
And then as far as the disinfecting the desk and the bathroom and everything, is that process left
So-
up to the school or in partnership with you?
I would say that they have reached out already for our recommendations on that. So right now, we are working with them, and so there isn't a, you have to do what I say or you don't have to follow, because they're working with us on that as we speak. So now, I don't know that that answers your question. What DPHHS said, and that's why I brought this thing from Sanders County, was their thought was the school doesn't have to have our blessing to open. But we all know that the Board of Health can close it if we need to. So that's the thing.
That
So
answers my question.
yeah, so we can, so what they told Sanders County, Sanders County Sanitarian, was help them in these areas, give them our expertise, help them with their plan, and then, you know, we just know as a Board of Health that's part of our job is if we have to close something down. So, yeah.
One more quick thing, because I do spend a lot of time in Madison County, Ennis, Cameron. Their health department has a Facebook page, and it has been incredibly helpful to know the cases, what's going on. And I know it's Facebook, and it has its ups and downs and its issues, but as somebody that goes to that county frequently, it's been very helpful. So FYI. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. do we have a person that's a head of technology for the county? Like, I know Nicole does a lot of this stuff, but is that, like, if we decided we wanted to do something like this Facebook page,
Well, that's just it, who's gonna manage it?
yeah.
We don't have anybody to do that.
Okay. I mean, there's not a lot to it if it's a Facebook thing, but I do not do social media for more than, for a lot of reasons. It's too overwhelming for me at times. But we could consider that, so maybe I'll talk to Nicole about it. But it really, if we get the website set up, it can, I believe we can have that where the website is also pushing posts to
It
Facebook.
pushes
And
the
that would
alerts
be
out.
the ideal thing, so. I mean, Broadwater County is kind of coming into the year 2000 with its own website. So, you know, we're getting there, and because we do want this to be available
Right.
to the public, so.
Okay, so I guess we will move on with our agenda then. Let's see. Public Health Officer, what do you got for us, Doc?
Same thing y'all been thinking about.
Okay. We're all on the same
Fishing?
page. Teresa, what do you have?
Just, school shots. Some people wait until the very last minute to get their school shots and expect us to, be right on top of them, so. Anyway, that's what I'm doing right now, is school shots and trying to catch up on all the stuff I missed when I was gone, basically, so. Trying to find help. If anybody knows of a LPN, please send them my way.
Does the families have to make an appointment to come in for the school shots, or can they just come on over? I saw on TV, the news last night, that one of the, it was Helen or Bozeman, you had to have an appointment to come in to get your school shots for the kids.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that, and this is just what I have heard, is that St. Pete's is only doing, private pay or insurance, and, Billings Clinic is only doing, so we're doing all the VFC, which there's a lot of VFC, and we have to have appointments, because otherwise we just have them walking up the door, and I'm sure you guys know that too, because, they want to walk in and just get their shots, and that's impossible. We normally will do that. I mean, we have every year taken walk-ins, and, we'll fill up the waiting room if that's what it takes, but we can't do it this year.
Yeah.
We have to do it by appointment, and people aren't happy about that. When they want to have the shots done, they want to have them done, because it's convenient for them, but we have to have appointments, and so, and since I'm the only nurse and I have a lot of meetings, it, kind of doesn't work out so well, so.
On a side note of that, Teresa, we're trying to get our VFC certification
Mhm.
so that we can start doing those too,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Okay, does any other board members have anything? We will have a approval of the minutes for July 27th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 27th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and second to approve the minutes of Monday, July 27th. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Next line of business is the county sanitarian, silos, RVU issues, and the Bingham notice of violation.
All right, so I did get an update from the state on Monday regarding the silos, campers issues. And so if you kind of new to this, the State Department of Environmental Quality has issued some violation letters to silos, some of the lots in silos that have multiple campers on them. And the way they were pursuing that is there's a certificate of subdivision approval. When a parcel is subdivided, it has a certificate of subdivision approval that goes along with it, that is the review by DEQ of sanitary issues like water wells and drain field stormwater. Those three are the main things. Most of the time, those COSAs, they're called Certificate of Subdivision Approval, or COSA, indicates that the lot can be used for one single family dwelling. And so that, so DEQ sent out letters to 17 landowners in silos, I think is how many it was, and that had multiple trailers on it. Since that time, DEQ has made 2 determinations regarding these complaints. And this was just, there was no correspondence with me or anyone other than DEQ doing this. The first determination was, and this is kind of a standard practice throughout the state, is if you have a single family residence, you're allowed to have an RV dump on your, just the pipe can go into your septic. So if you went camping over the weekend, you can come home and dump at your own home, because there's no difference if you're at your house for the weekend or if you dump there. That's how I've interpreted and allowed people to use their property. So basically, DEQ says, okay, so there's one hookup already. So there's one RV that is on your lot that you're already allowed. And then they said, well, what's the difference between having a home on there and pulling a home off and putting another RV on there? So they have changed what was their normal procedure of saying 2 or more is considered an RV park to saying 2 is okay. So this determination is new to us, and I mean it was just sent to me on Monday after I requested it. So basically they're saying that you can have 2 seasonal trailers on your property. The second determination I have to read because it's mind-boggling to me, and I've asked for some clarification on it. It says, in relation to these complaints, a permanent space, because that's what they're talking about for the recreational vehicles, is considered to be a trailer space with a dedicated water or sewer or electrical connection, which is connected to an occupied trailer regularly throughout the summer season. If you read that, there's so many places for people to, like, I don't know what that means. Which is connected to an occupied trailer regularly. So is the electrical service that's connected to the trailer regularly, or is it the occupancy of the trailer regularly? And why is it just the summer? It said throughout the summer season. So I have already blasted an email saying, I need clarification on this. This doesn't make sense. Like, is a dedicated water connection, if I go out and buy a Y, an 89-cent yellow Y that connects to my frost-free hydrant, and I put 2 hoses on that, or is that now 2 dedicated water services? I don't know. Or does it have to be like a trailer park where it has its own frost-free for each? So I think, we're no further along, and we may actually have just lost a little ground for leverage. The issue really, from my standpoint is, I just need to know what we can and what we can't enforce. If it's 2 campers on there or 3, I need to know where the line's drawn so that we can follow the rules. That's my job. And until this determination, it was 1 camper per lot was what was allowed, and now we're at 2 campers that are allowed. So my update is, I think we need some more clarification from DEQ on this, and I'll try to keep pursuing that. What that means, though, is that a majority of those lots only have 2 campers on them. There are some lots that have 5 or 6, obviously, or even just 3. So there will be some people that will have to make changes, for sure. But the majority of them have just 2 campers on them. And so this could change how that plays out. So from the complaint standpoint that you all have, or that you all receive as commissioners, mostly, not as the Board of Health. So they get many complaints, and so does Nicole from planning. We need to get this determination information figured out before we can move on with having a public meeting to discuss how to handle the RV situation out in silos. From a wastewater standpoint, it does make sense. The flows for 2 RVs are still lower than what we would normally consider for a single family residence. So they're not exceeding the wastewater flow. So if they had a drain field that was installed for a single family dwelling, 2 RVs are going to be about the same, as long as they're not, just the same as any home, as long as they're not being too crazy with their water use. And most of them are.
So here's my question. So it's single family. So if there's 2 RVs there, it's not a single family, by 2 separate families.
Yeah, I mean, I will forward this
Just saying.
email
Yeah.
to you. I wanted to have the it's confusing, and it's not going to make it needs to be codified, if you want to say. It needs to be in the ARM, or it needs to be somewhere, or we need to pass our own rules, which we could do as well through the sanitation. We could do it through our wastewater regulations. But it does become quasi-zoning through sewage, which I'm not a big fan of doing either. But there are some other things that some other paths that we can follow for that as well. In relationship to this issue is another one in Rolling Glen, which I don't know, you guys probably have heard, as commissioners, you may have heard this complaint. Rolling Glen is a residential subdivision down west of Wheat, Montana area. That's a little further north, but that area, very residential. They're large parcels, 2 acres to 5 acres maybe, ranging in size. And one of the lots has on some of the like VRBO, but there's a camp something, I forget what it's called. Hip camp, thank you. Wow, Hip camp have it listed, so you could rent their 5-acre lot and just pull your camper or go tent camping out there. And there's no rhyme or reason to how many people can be on that lot doing that, because they're not connected to water. There's nothing out there for sewer and water. Obviously, if they are defecating on that property, I can go and close that down. But I can only tell those people that are on there that they have to stop. And the owner, it's going to be a tricky situation if we pursue it that way. I have reached out to Ed Evanson from Food and Consumer, because they're the ones that license campgrounds, to find out at what point are we licensing campgrounds, because prior to this strange determination from DEQ, it would have been 2 campsites. They would have had to have a campground license. This is exactly the reason that we have campground licenses, is to make sure that people don't just throw a sign up saying camp here, and then you've got people discharging their wastewater everywhere. So I have an email. Once again, I'm waiting to hear back from them on that.
I do have a question, Sean. Is the property legally defined as commercial or residential?
Oh, so this is a good question, because the Homeowners Association came into the office, and they are trying to pursue it through their covenants. So the covenants say that it's for residential use only. But the commissioners will be the first ones to tell you covenants are enforced by the homeowners association. It's a civil matter. Their attorney said, write the check for 15 grand because that's where it's going to be by the time we get this guy closed down.
Right, but I mean, I can't open any business on, even if there is covenants or not, something that's not zoned as commercial.
We have no zoning in this county.
Okay.
So that's a little, it is different. It's not a zoning issue, it's a covenants issue, which is a civil matter between the home or amongst the homeowners. It's tricky, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get involved where I can, but if I don't have, I can't just, it doesn't pass the litmus test, right? It just doesn't sound right, but I can't just say, hey, that's wrong. I have to have regulation behind me that says you can't be doing that. Because if I say you have to have facilities out there, he could pay for a porta potty to go out there, and that would meet my requirements, and he would still be able to have the campground out there. So I'm trying to figure out where we can draw these lines and that. So, but that's even worse than I think silos, because this is very residential, and there isn't their covenants are very specific about it. But once again, they may have to pursue this through the civil channels. But we're working on figuring out those details.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. So let's move on to the Bingham notice of violation, because I actually have good news for once after the bad news. So the Bingham notice of violation was that they drilled their well in the wrong spot. They drilled the well 75 feet from their neighbor's drain field. So I have mostly good news, I guess. It's not quite there, but we sent them a notice of violation. They emailed me back immediately saying, we have the well driller lined up to come out. We're just waiting for him to come back. So, of course, I didn't believe him. But I drive by H&L Drilling every day coming down here from Helena. So I just swung in to talk to the owner. And he confirmed that when his rig is moving back this direction, they will be re-drilling and abandoning properly the existing well. So that's good news. That we didn't have to pursue it through the county attorney's office or anything like that. They're fixing that issue. So, yay.
Okay, new business. Doc, you got anything new?
I have a question. In the H&R Drilling, aware of the fact that you can't drill that close to the drain field or no?
Well, it is so the well drilling regulations, and they have to have the board of well drillers licenses them. They know that they are supposed to be 100 feet from a drain field, yes. So but it was done on private property, and what I've been told is that it is up to the private landholder or owner to put the well, and what happens on their property is they're in charge of that. Now, if they want to pursue that the well driller should have known, that's between them. If we were to see that happen over and over again, I would go to the board of well drillers and say, this guy has a blatant disregard for the rules. So, but yeah, that's exactly. The well driller is supposed to take those things into consideration for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the board have any other new business? No? Teresa, do you got anything else? No? Okay. You got everything covered, Sean? You hope so?
I seem to go on and on. Yes, I think I have everything until, just like last time, I think I literally said, I've got nothing, and the next day I had 3 emails out to you. So,
I just have a quick housekeeping comment is I don't think I'll be able to attend the meeting in September.
Okay.
So, but looks like you've got enough people that you don't. I'm not as critical as I once was. So,
No, we still need you.
but you don't have to switch the meeting for me.
Okay.
But if you want to, I probably will be back on Friday. But if you keep it on Wednesday, I'm just not gonna be able to attend for that month.
When
So
would the next meeting be?
It'll be the 16th of September. Because we're trying to go back to the third Wednesday of every month, which is what we used to do pre-COVID. That does not mean we won't be here again. In terms of emails from me, everyone has been, I mean, obviously, I sent some emails last night, maybe this morning, people received emails from me, and that's a good way to communicate to everyone. I don't know, Dwight and Leota, if you know, I'm contracted with the county, so I'm not a county employee, so I'm here. In theory, in my mind, I work 2 days a week for the county.
Okay.
Who knows? I mean, it's been, with COVID, it turned into 4 days a week for a little while and this and that. But right now, I've been able to do a lot of it from home as well, or from my office, my home office. So that's why you'll get strange emails at strange times, is me trying to get caught up without being in the office. But
Okay, is there nothing else? We will adjourn. Our next meeting date is September 15th, is that right?
16th.
16th. At 1 o'clock here, so nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion's been made to second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, everybody.
Leah, did you get my email?
I did. I thought about it again this morning. I had never even heard of that. And then